and welcome to Comically Pedantic, where we take a detailed look at the complicated concepts, characters, and history of comic book culture. I'm your host, Derek L. Chase, and joining me again on this episode is the wonderful Corinne Levy.
Oh, hello! That's my Mrs. Doubtfire impression. A new greeting for the 5th episode.
Thank you again for coming back. I feel like I just keep saying that every episode, but I'm very
I
happy
live here now. I live here inside of this podcast. I pay rent with my thoughts.
So before we get started, last week, I totally skipped over doing the bright spot at the start of the episode. So I need to ask you what your bright spot is right off the top so I don't forget.
Okay. Oh, what is my bright spot? I know what my dark spot is. I finished, it's not that bad. It's more like a dim spot. I finished Batman White Knight, like that book. Mm-hmm. And I had purchased the Harley Quinn spinoff.
Mm-hmm.
And then I freaking realized as I finished the book that there are 2 other sequels that I have to read before I can read the original spinoff that I've wanted to read, so that I can know the full context. And I'm so mad about it.
If it makes you feel any better, one of my favorite aspects of comic books, and it's a thing that like people kind of complain about, but it was I guess it's a blessing and a curse, is I always really liked diving into a comic book with no backstory. And just like the little things that they talk about, it always felt like there was this much bigger history to it. Then you go back and you read the stories that they're talking about, and it's like, oh, that happened like once, and they just mention it, you know, like it seemed like a bigger deal when you read about it and you don't have the context. So it might be worth it, you know.
Well, because I think that would be fine if, like, you know, it like the story still made sense.
Oh,
like.
Yeah.
But so I had read the first issue of the spinoff before I even knew there was a White Knight series.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, oh, I need to do some studying, because like this story sounds cool, but I know that I'm going to need to understand some stuff. So, and now I have to get another comic book, which, like, in the end, I'm not mad about, but man, I'm also going to be mad about it. But my real bright spot is, what is it? Oh, I saw my parents today. That was fun. That was a good time. I like that I pretend that I forgot about that. But they literally left 2 hours ago. But yeah, that was very fun. We went to like a brewery, and I found like a small soap store, and I bought a bunch of soap. So that was fun. Good sense. Good people. And now we're doing a podcast.
I've been reading Animal Man as I am laying down at night to go to sleep. I've read parts of Animal Man before. It's I never finished it because I read what I liked and I skipped around. I was way more into Swamp Thing and Sandman from this sort of Vertigo universe that they were kind of building all around the same time. And right. Animal Man was always good and I liked it, but I fell way more into that kind of thing. So at full disclosure, I started reading Animal Man because I was writing an episode for us to go over about the guy, not about Morrison, but Grant Morrison is a writer who wrote Animal Man, and they are also a person who is involved with a thing that I'm also writing for us to talk about. And talking about them and writing for them in that particular episode, I was like, hey, yeah, Animal Man was really good. I should check that out. And I went back and started reading. It's so much fun. I think you would actually really like it. There's a lot of animal rights stuff in it. By issue 5, Animal Man becomes a vegetarian.
I like animals, and some men are cool. So I suppose if you put those together, it would be fun.
It's the thing that I like about it. Like, it starts off just kind of like a normal superhero thing, just with a little bit more of an everyday life kind of
Yeah.
grounding to it. But then as it goes on, there's way more like very meta stuff. At one point, Animal Man meets Grant Morrison,
Oh,
and
that's
they
fun.
they discuss like, why are you ruining my life for a comic book?
Oh, that is fun. That's like when they put the animators on display from the Chowder Show.
Oh my
Do you
god, I
remember?
loved that. Yes.
Yeah.
That
Man,
was
I
so
could
good.
I could write an essay on reasons why I love Chowder, but
Great show.
that's a different podcast.
Um so now that we've talked about all of the happy good things that are happening in our lives, and even a
Let's
dim
get
spot for you,
sad.
we're gonna talk about some weird shit on this particular episode, because holy hell, I learned some stuff in doing the research for this, because I knew about one particular thing. I didn't realize that it happened more than once. So
Ah,
it's gonna be a bit of a pain in the ass to get through, but my god, is it fascinating.
cool, cool.
So, as ComicsGate found support in alternative news outlets, like we talked about last time, there was still an open question as to how much legitimacy the group could obtain. Like, certainly they found some big names in Ethan Van Sciver or John Malin, but both of these artists had largely abandoned working for the big two after causing such a scene with their online theatrics. The same could be said for Chuck Dixon or Mike Barron, who largely worked independently before being adopted as ComicsGate darlings. The funding campaigns for ComicsGate branded projects would make a great sum of cash, but many projects were left unfulfilled while the creators moved on to newer books or merchandise to raise money. At nearly every instance, there was a step forward and a step backward for the fledgling movement. The group desperately needed mainstream appeal and backing from prominent publishers, even small, independent organizations. And that's where we're going to start here. In late 2018, several Twitter users began noticing that Alterna Comics account had been retweeting ComicsGate posts and even commenting on some of the images. The company itself never specifically stated anything about ComicsGate, and there is a high likelihood that they weren't even aware that most of these tweets were related to ComicsGate in the first place.
Right.
The online community dedicated to combating the ongoing harassment, however, kept their guard up, often calling out Alterna's promotion of the movement as kind of a big deal. And the company's
So
social... Yeah,
is
go ahead.
Alterna like is
There-
it just kind of like a newscast or something?
no, so
Like is it a media platform or
Alterna Comics is a very, very small publisher.
okay.
To the point that it's basically one dude who is like, he's got... People are putting in things, but there's basically one person in charge of Alterna Comics.
Okay, so it's a publishing company for
Right.
publishing comics. I didn't
Right.
know if it was going to be like a small chain of like comic book stores or like
No,
okay, cool.
it's...
Publishing company.
Right.
Got it.
And they're not like gigantic. They're not small. They're just like
They're
they're
mid.
right. It's a step up from being like, oh, I published this myself. And it's
Is there like a comic series that like would be
you know what?
known by them?
I'm gonna Google right now, because I have looked into some of their stuff before and I didn't really know any of it.
Because I guess it's not quite big as like an Image. Because I feel like there's just some really big series that are coming from Image Comics.
Right.
But like, you know,
and
they're not
so,
just like Amazon self-published, obviously.
right. Hold on. Give me just a second. Alterna Comics.
I will stall time by talking about my love for Saga for the 5th time on this podcast. Hello, welcome to the 5th episode. This is the 5th time I will be talking about Saga. If you ever read it, there's a small little sea lion. His name is Gus. He commonly is found wearing overalls and is the most wholesome being. He's got big old eyes and a big old heart, and I love him. I just want to snuggle with him and say, hello, friend. And I would like him to say, hello, friend, back. Have you found the photos yet?
Yeah, so
Okay, cool.
I found a bunch of comics that they've put out, and I'll be honest with you, I've not read any of these. I'm wondering, there's a couple that sound familiar, so I might have like read through them at one point.
Okay.
But yeah, nothing that I can really say for certain that would really grab casual readers' attention. You know, it might be something that like if someone picked up an issue here or there, they probably are like, oh, I think I know that. You know,
Gotcha.
there's not like a Spawn or anything like that that I can really say this is sort
A
of like an
Spawn.
alternate. Yeah.
Amazing.
So I mean, uh, it's they're fine. You know,
It's mid. Yeah.
there are a bunch of publishers out there like Ape Entertainment was one,
Right.
Alterna is one. There's a few that they get people in and they basically publish other people's books and
Right.
it works for them.
Okay.
Um, and every company starts somewhere, right?
Yeah.
So this one is one who was putting out comics and then they were retweeting people who happened to be involved in the ComicsGate movement. And a lot of it was like people basically saying like, hey, I picked up this book, and then they would also talk about ComicsGate. And so they would be an Alterna thing there, and then they would talk about ComicsGate. And Alterna would just
Right.
retweet it, right?
Probably
So
because
it's
they were like tagged in it or something.
yeah,
At
things
least
like
from a
that.
surface judgment of this.
So it's one of those things where it's really hard to nail down like what the hell were you thinking, kind of, you know, because it could be nothing and it could be something.
Yeah.
The company's social media policies would be uh, not really a whole lot of concern until more came out.
Right. Okay.
They published their updated code of conduct agreement to their submissions page and later to Twitter in August of 2018.
Mhm.
Catching the eye of critics were clauses such as, you are required and encouraged to actively promote your title on social media. We do not condone the use of block bots / blind blocking / blockchains or any other kind of program or practice that is used to block thousands of people blindly en masse. The justification for this comes further on, stating, we have readers of all walks of life, and it is paramount to us that we encourage, promote, and stand by our stance that comics are for everyone. So while the need to reach a broader audience and believing that none should be discriminated against is a valid argument, the unfortunate reality is that prohibiting the use of tools like blockchains serves the purpose of opening creators to more harassment. Creators and critics pointed out that the strange intrusiveness of such a policy and its placement of monetary gains over the safety of creators. So I'm not sure if like the idea is you cannot use anything that blocks people, like say with the hashtag ComicsGate,
Right.
because those are potential buyers of our books.
Yeah, because when you first read like the terms and conditions, at first I sound like, oh, like this is great. Like everybody can see your thing. But it seems like they wrote that and then didn't think of the negatives of that statement.
Right.
Okay, I get it now. Yeah.
Like at this point, ComicsGate had been in full swing for quite a while, and many artists and writers had faced months of targeted harassment.
Yeah.
So one of the only ways to combat that barrage of abusive behavior would be utilize a blockchain to immediately block followers of Richard C. Meyer or the hashtag ComicsGate itself. So banning this
you can
practice,
be selective.
right? That
Cool.
meant that any creator willing to work for Alterna would immediately be open to abuse. And as writer Mark Wade put it, the creator's only choice is to A, sort through vicious, ugly personal comments all day long, every day, and then block accounts one by one, rinse and repeat. B, resort to the imperfect solution of a blockchain, or C, and then in parentheses, my own choice, I'm sad to say, largely remove themselves from social media, something forbidden by Alterna Comics, by the way. So you like the idea you have to be online to promote your comics.
Yeah, because you
and
have to be the one responsible for it.
Right.
Right.
And you're not allowed to block a group of people who may be harassing you due to this this particular policy, which is
right.
a bit shitty. And I think
they really put you in a corner then.
right.
Yeah.
Alterna responded to criticism by pointing that creators could reach out to the company for better support. So they're basically like, hey, you got a problem with this, reach out to us, we will work with you. Which I think is a good way to start that communication. Right?
Yeah, that's kind of like they're casting that Percy Jackson show, and they have the author of the books, and like, you know, he backs up all the cast and like is happy and willing to make statements being like, hey, like if you don't support this casting, then like you don't support, you know, my, you know, author vision and stuff. So like having that kind of backing would help if that's what they're trying to do. But
right.
I have a feeling you're going to tell me it's not going to go that way.
Shortly after, Alterna's founder, Peter Simeti, took to Twitter to explain the blockchains have the side effect of removing people who do not engage in harassment, while simultaneously stating that he was aware of a letterer at the company who was defying the new policy. So he's basically like, look, if you use blockchains, you are effectively getting rid of an audience. Even if you're saying like you're getting rid of a group of people who are harassing you, there might be people swept up in that who aren't harassers. And then he intentionally calls out someone who works for the company or does work that's being published by the company who is defying this policy. Which that is a little shittier, I think, maybe calling out a particular person. And just a week after the agreement start, that letterer, Micah Myers, not Michael Myers, but Micah Myers,
okay,
claimed to be let go for his refusal to comply. So he said he got fired over this.
Right.
In response, Simeti threatened to take legal action against Comic Book Resources, CBR, via Twitter for publishing an article on Myers' claims. So all CBR did was say, this person said this, and they published it. And Simeti said, I will sue you because this is like a defamation of, you know, because you're taking this person's word.
Yes.
So, in subsequent tweets, Simeti claimed people were trying to ruin his life and that he was suicidal over the backlash from the news coming out, which is not a great place, I think, to publicly be in when all of this is happening.
Yeah, the dark spot.
Rather than sue CBR, Simeti instead chose to have them publish a prepared statement where he vehemently denies being involved in the firing of Myers, asserts that Myers stepped down of his own accord, and that the use of a blockchain opened up the creative team to harassment rather than preventing it. The entire scenario did little to engender goodwill for the company and any outside of the growingly steadfast anti-mainstream contrarians, which included many followers of ComicsGate.
Okay.
So those same people had already felt like they found an ally in Simeti since he had tweeted several times about his disgust for those that would write off ComicsGaters as, in his mind, this sent a signal that comics aren't for everyone. So Simeti is basically saying, if you are blocking a group of people, regardless of the behavior, you are saying that your comics cannot be enjoyed by those people. And he is vehemently against this because he believes that you must accept all people for it to be like comics are for everyone.
Right.
What he is not really thinking about or really like putting forward in his mind is that those same people are saying that comics are not for everyone.
Yeah, because like I'm wondering if he even knows about like ComicsGate. Because like it's one thing, like, you know, to be in an industry and, you know, you're working in the industry, like whatever, like I don't know, I work in the culinary industry, so like but I'm not gonna personally know like everything that Bobby Flay is doing in a day, you know?
Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm wondering if it's like this is just a guy who is looking at it in the most idyllic way, like comics are for literally every person. And then just forgetting the fact that there are some comic fans that are very exclusive and are also creating a whole movement. So yeah, that's a tough hole that you've dug.
Well, to put things into like maybe a slightly different perspective, Sean Murphy, who did the White Knight series,
Mm-hmm.
Sean Murphy has worked with several people who are part of the ComicsGate movement.
Oh, wow. I had no idea.
And the
Crazy.
argument that he has made is like, well, I don't know what all of these people are doing, you know,
Yeah.
and I don't know enough about Sean Murphy to like make a decision here or there. Like, he doesn't seem to be quite that much of an asshole, at least like from what I've not done that much research into it. And
Yeah.
he could be quite an asshole. I don't know. I've got several of his books here actually.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, he wrote a good book, so
Right.
that's all I know.
And that can be enough. It could be just like, I don't know. So like I can't go into every single person and go, did this person do a bad thing? And
Yeah, because it's
I think that's
possible
a
that
weird.
they just had to be partnered together. Like, that's just like what his job required. It was like DC was
It's
like, all right, you two got to work together. Like, I
it's a
don't know.
weird it's a weird precedent to set, I think, for creators to be like, you are responsible for knowing everything that a person has done. However, I do think that like once you are aware of
Yeah.
some
Because
bad
it's like in
stuff,
the case of this like
right,
publishing company, like if
right,
this is a thing that keeps coming up, then like
right.
you should probably look into it. As opposed to
Mhm.
the Sean Murphy situation where it's like he probably just did a one and done project and like, it was the
Yeah,
project. That's all he had
and
to do.
I can't speak, you know, on that in any like real
Yeah.
detail. Just from what I have seen, like cursory as I'm doing research for this, like there's a
Right.
chance that he knew. There's a chance that he didn't. I don't know. And like until something like really bad comes out that I'm aware of, I don't care that much. You know, like
Yeah. Like we
it's
don't
like a
have to make an episode 7. But
right.
who knows? Maybe in a couple years we will.
um So around this time, so pro ComicsGate websites like Bounding into Comics leapt
Right.
to Samedi's defense. So while simultaneously downplaying the actions of Richard C. Meyer, they were saying that like Peter Samedi is like he's the guy that is coming in and he's fighting for freedom of expression, you know?
Yeah.
Which is I think a bit telling if you're saying like, oh, Richard C. Meyer, he's just joking and stuff like that. Peter Samedi's really fighting for you're just playing cover. That's all that is, you
And
know?
they've kind of done that in cycles before.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Wow,
in
I
an
found
article,
a pattern.
in an
I'm
article
learning.
titled "Alterna Comics Accused of Supporting White Supremacy Due to Neutral ComicsGate Stance," which is a mouthful of a title.
Yes.
Author Spencer Bakuli points to a fan on Twitter that accused Samedi of supporting white supremacy before deleting the tweet in question. So a fan said, you are supporting white supremacy by supporting ComicsGate with your like inaction.
Right.
And then deleted that tweet. This person wrote a full fucking article about it.
My goodness.
Alterna Comics fans and ComicsGate supporters flooded that fan's timeline and even posted his personal information. So
Ugh,
already off to a great start.
not again.
Bakuli dismisses this as insignificant since the information could be found on LinkedIn or elsewhere. But this obfuscates the issue. Whether or not that information is readily available if sought out, it was made available for a group of people who were angry and harassing someone online. That's a big fucking difference. It's pretty shitty.
It is pretty shitty.
Publicizing
Big
publicizing an address or a phone number is an invitation to harass that person in this new venue.
Because we've already seen so many people get doxxed, like throughout the history of like from Gamersgate to now this, like, and it's just, man, people gotta stop doxing people. It's real freaky that that's like such an easy thing to do. My goodness.
Oh yeah. So Samedi's response to all of this, and to this this individual, follows a similar thinking to how ComicsGate approached things. He began by asking how he could help, but when he received a response, Samedi told the fan, Sure thing. But first, you're accusing me, my company, and our creators of viciously disgusting things that have caused all of us a lot of pain and turmoil. An apology would be great. Thanks. So he reaches out, says, what can I do to help? I'm seeing that you're having issues because of, your response to me. And when the person said, hey, tell these people to leave me alone, Peter Simeti said, apologize to me first, which is, that speaks volumes.
Yeah, it's a little bit like, let me hook you in and think I'm a good person and then do this thing for me. Ha ha ha. People are wild in this whole ComicsGate thing. My goodness. I sometimes am just like, like people don't think the same way as me. That's crazy. And I feel like I'm fairly logical and like, you know, I try my best to think the kinder thoughts. But my goodness, people are just not doing that. And it is wild. The amount of people.
Like I spend a lot of my time listening to crazy conspiracists and a lot of right-wing nut jobs, I would say. And even left-wing nut jobs. Although I spend a lot less time listening to them because they're fairly boring. It's right now it's a lot of pro-Russia stuff.
Okay.
It's very weird. But I recently saw someone defending Alex Jones, and the thought process on it was, if a conspiracy could be right, then they had to defend Alex Jones for stating basically that everything was a conspiracy, because in the event that he was right at any point, the rest of it didn't matter. It was convoluted. I could not wrap my head around this person's thinking, and it was
one of wild and also just incorrect.
it was one of the things where I was just kind of like, it hurts my brain to try to understand what it is that you are thinking, or how you're thinking the things that you're thinking. So rather than apologize, this fan that was tweeting to Peter Simeti pointed out how these actions of Peter Simeti did little to dissuade anything, since a great deal of the responses were only continuing the harassment. And according to them, their emails were hacked and calls were even coming into their place of work. To the fan, this proved that they were dealing with a hate group. The action and reaction were not equivocal. Stating a strong opinion, even one that is even one that is as harsh as labeling someone a supporter of white supremacy, is dwarfed by a group of people continuing to bombard this person on social media with the help of the publisher of a comic book company and adding their personal information into the mix. Depending on your view of this situation, Alternative's reputation either took another deep dip or drastically endeared themselves through engaging with such discourse. For the ComicsGate movement, it was a strong indicator that a publisher would, at the very least, stand by them. For Spencer Bakuli, this was seen as a movement that could exemplify why accusations of hatred should not be trusted. His article ends by directly linking this situation with the claim that Richard C. Meyer was in Charlottesville for the Unite the Right rally, as well as defending Mike Barron from allegations that he was a ComicsGate supporter. Interestingly, both of these points have evidence to back their claims. So, we're going to get into a little bit of that.
Juicy evidence segment. Yay!
In Bakuli's previous post about Mike Barron's supposed ties to ComicsGate, it's revealed that he refused to disavow their actions and claimed that his only problem was with the name. Gail Simone wrote about their conversation on the matter, which formed a large chunk of the basis for which Bakuli wrote his piece. The majority of the article focused on Simone's disdain for ComicsGate and claiming that this was due to blind hatred for the group instead of any actions taken by anyone associated with them, while simultaneously stating that it couldn't be considered a hate group. While Mike Barron may not have stated he was throwing his support behind the movement, his actions indicated that he was in agreement with their stance, even to the point of only stating he disagreed with the name. This article was published exactly 1 day prior to the article where Bercouli claims Mike Barron's ties to ComicsGate are a false assumption. So Barron would even later go on to work with Richard C. Meyer on a comic project and agreed to be interviewed for ComicsGate.org.
So, oh no, they have a .org now?
Yeah. Regardless of how entrenched Barron was or wasn't in ComicsGate, there was definite, evidence, strong indicators of his at least tacit support for their stances and their actions.
Right.
And anyone that has listened to the podcast for a while, Mike Barron is the person that we discussed in episodes 3 and 4 when I first started this show. He is the person who wrote the comic book where the Punisher turns black, moves to Chicago, and becomes best friends with Luke Cage for a few days.
They've talked about... I feel like this has come up on episodes of the Weekly Planet that I would
probably.
I think they did because it's during the 90s, right? It's 90s yes. Punisher. Yeah, they mentioned that.
Mike Barron was a strange person. I actually quite liked a lot of his Punisher comics.
Right.
And I will say he was not a big fan of having to write this particular Punisher comic.
Okay.
But it's interesting that the ways in which it came out, because I believe it was trying to not be racist and ended up being extremely racist.
Okay.
In the ways, I'm not going to throw Mike Barron under the bus and say that he was a racist and that's why he did that. I don't think that's true. But it is weird the ways in which it was written and how little it really had to do with what it actually was to be black, and the ways in it was basically let's have a white person describe what it's like to be black in America. It's very strange.
Yeah, and it was the 90s, and I feel like there's a whole lot going on with that series. But this whole situation, I'm just thinking back to when you said this guy just doesn't support the name of the whole movement. So I watched The Boys. And there's in season 2. I'm saying that now just in case anybody does listen and hasn't made it there yet, even though they'd probably be a couple years behind. Here is a little spoily. So there is a character on The Boys season 2, and she is a superhero who's been kind of rebranded a couple times throughout her life, because she's actually one of the first ones that was created by this superhero company, who was originally founded by a Nazi group, basically. So she's just this really old, but not old looking Nazi lady, and she's made it into the big superhero group of the present day. And they do all these PR things, and she hosts all these rallies and stuff. And eventually, in the end of the season, you do find out that she's, in fact, a Nazi, basically. And there is a scene in the end where she's about to, get her ass kicked. But she is trying to justify what she's saying. She's like, oh, people like what I have to say. They just don't like the word Nazi. And I feel like that just really sums up a big part of this, where it's people think they like the surface of what you're saying. But then when you look at it, they're like, oh wait, this is kind of horrible.
So that actually ties pretty closely with the next assertion that we're going to talk about, which was Richard C. Meyer being in Charlottesville for the Unite the Right rally.
Okay.
So
what a time.
Richard C. Meyer's reasons for being near the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville are kind of hard to discern. When prominent anti-ComicsGate creator Renfamous posted screen captures of Meyer's own videos and tweets showing that he was, in fact, at that rally,
Yeah.
The intent was to have Indiegogo halt any working relationship that they had with them. So at the time, Indiegogo had canceled and refunded a project by Vox Day, noted white nationalist that we've discussed in the past,
Yes, we have.
for violating their terms of use. Basically, they were like, no Nazis, get out. While no cause was ever made public, the most likely reasons were Day's associations with the alt-right, his long history of hateful rhetoric, and the fact that the comic book was specifically about and for the alt-right, or a combination. It was, I believe that was the one that he was doing. It was like the alt-right Hero Q or something like that. It's a bunch of bullshit. By tying Meyer to the march of neo-Nazis in Virginia, Renfamous attempted to garner the same response, basically saying, you got rid of this one Nazi, get rid of the other one.
Yeah.
Meyer's tweets show that he was at an intersection where people were run over by cars during the rally. And the video that he uploaded to YouTube was titled, KKK fails to stop me from buying Black Panther comic in Charlottesville, which was a strong signal for the troll-like nature of this visit. It seems to me, and I can't say for certain, his basic point was, I'm going to go here. Everyone's like accusing everyone here of being Nazis. I'm going to go buy a Black Panther comic book and be like, look, they didn't stop me from buying a book about a black man. That seems to be kind of where he was going with this bullshit. And that checks out for what I know of this man.
Okay. What a weak point to try and make.
So his defense was that he was in Virginia to visit family that lived in Lynchburg, which is a city about 70 miles southwest of where that rally took place.
Also, what a terrible town name.
Lynchburg? Oh, yes.
What a horror. Why? America, why are we naming towns like this? It's horrible. Get out of there. Make it a ghost town. My God. It's horrible.
In an interview with PJ Media, Meyer claims that he had only made the trip to Charlottesville in search of a sold-out comic book and just happened to be caught up in the Unite the Right rally at the moment of the highly publicized event. The tweet intimating his involvement in the rally provoked outrage from Meyer and the larger ComicsGate community, culminating in Ethan Van Sciver claiming it was proof that Renfamous accused Meyer of murdering a woman. This is demonstrably false, but it helps to perpetuate a narrative of oppression from detractors. So, if you're following along, Richard C. Meyer went to Lynchburg, 70 miles southwest of Charlottesville, made a trip to the comic book store in Charlottesville, again, 70 miles away, to buy a comic book that was apparently sold out literally everywhere else, just so happened to be at the Unite the Right rally that was very heavily publicized at the time.
Can we also take a moment? One, very clearly like a horrible alibi. Yes, because of the mileage, but also you could buy it online.
That's true.
You could get the book online. You could order it. You could call this apparently very niche comic book store and you could call them and you'd be like, I am willing to give you my card information now if you put this in a tiny box and pay me a little extra and ship it my way. Like, it is not that hard.
Right. And then, so because he was called out for this by Renfamous on Twitter, Ethan Van Sciver then claimed that Renfamous was saying Richard C. Meyer murdered that woman that was run over, even though that is not what was being said. It was like, just, hey, this person was there at this thing that was pretty shitty, you know? Yeah. These are the elements that Bakuli, and by extension Bounding Into Comics, use as examples for how others demonize ComicsGate, which I would argue is the exact fucking opposite of what just happened. Like the story of a random Twitter comic book fans create, the story. I'm going to start over. The story of a random Twitter comic book fan's accusation stands as a model for the unjust mistreatment of their followers in an attempt to create a cautionary tale of how similar accusations should not be believed, thus creating a useful deflection for negative stories about how the movement needs to protect itself. Like, an added benefit is coming to the defense of a publisher that has shown a refusal to disavow their actions. Moreover, at least one creator had their titles dropped by the publisher due, in their words, to speaking out against ComicsGate. While Samedi claimed to keep a neutral stance in the campaign, it was clear that the party benefiting from these changes was ComicsGate. And alternate comics gained allies in their public relations nightmare, while ComicsGate came closer to gaining legitimacy. So it just, from my perspective here, it just seems like these two shitty people, or I guess a shitty person and a shitty movement, just were coming together out of like a need to sort of protect each other. I mean, I could be wrong. I don't know. I'm just saying that's the way it seems to me, you know?
Okay. I think it does seem a bit like a weird symbiotic relationship.
Right. I'm not necessarily saying that like Peter Samedi went out and was like, hey, I fully support ComicsGate. We're going all in on this bullshit.
I think
we're
it's
gonna
definitely I think it's definitely one of those things where it's like this person thinks that their initial thought is like a lot of, like, I think this one person was like, I feel like I have this unpopular opinion and this group of people are really cheering me on, so I'm gonna keep on going. And then they keep on going because they're like, wow, this loud man's got thoughts. And he's like, oh wow, I do have thoughts. And then he keeps going, and it all keeps rolling around in this weird shitball.
Well, I mean, we've discussed in previous episodes of like that's how Gamergate really like kept getting new people involved. Like, someone had a slightly out there opinion that like, you know, oh, they're just saying things. It's kind of funny, but it's a little bit out there, and I feel under attack for having the same kind of thoughts. So I'm just going to fully support this other person. You know?
Yeah.
It's shitty. It's kind of how recruitment works, you know?
Yeah.
While Peter Samedi continued operations as normal, a new wrinkle was about to be introduced into the alternate comic saga. On February 12th, 2019, local police interrupted a live stream hosted by Samedi with their guns drawn.
Ooh.
Someone earlier in the night had called the police, reported to be Peter Samedi, gave his address, claimed to have stabbed their girlfriend, and was suicidal. The stream has since been made private, but the news made the round on comic book sites. Someone had swatted Peter Samedi.
Oh.
In the aftermath, Samedi took to Twitter to ask everyone to remain calm while an investigation into the event was underway. Ethan Van Sciver, however, took a different route. Just one day after their horrific event, Van Sciver uploaded a video to YouTube where he mocks anti-ComicsGate voices as a direct response. It's a short video, but I cut a few clips for us to listen to. And the first is Ethan's introduction to the controversy.
Oh boy.
I am part of a consumer movement called ComicsGate. As a professional in comic books, I noticed that in the last 6 to 10 years, an influx of hostile political extremists had wormed their way into influential positions within the industry.
I just realized, this is Ethan Van Sciver's voice?
Oh yeah, that's his voice.
Oh, this is so weird. I've never heard any of these people before.
It's gonna get really interesting.
Okay, wow.
The hobby and the media associated with both. I grew alarmed as I witnessed the decline in sales and quality, the rise in prices, and the destruction of the retail establishment upon which all depended. Then, because of my Republican Party affiliation, these extremists came for me too. I chose to fight back. I am ComicsGate. Others have joined me and called themselves ComicsGate as well. We've been punished with blacklistings, harassment and abuse, and false, slanderous accusations of bigotry and racism. These SJWs take cover behind marginalized people in order to gain control of powerful media platforms.
I just have to say that he's already like, I don't know how far in I am. Not very far in. But he already is blaming marginalized people. And he clearly is like, oh, these SJWs are using like marginalized people to attack us. And it's like, okay, so you're already demonizing.
I think the idea is that the SJWs in his mind are saying we're doing this to help marginalized people, and they're using that as cover to attack them.
But I will say, because like I'm in terms of the comic scandal community, I am a bit of a dum-dum, and that's okay. So I'm assuming that people are going to be watching it with my level of like reading into things, and that already 100% sounds like he's blaming marginalized people especially from the, because he's written this down, like you can hear him like reading.
Oh yeah,
I'm just saying that's 100% what it sounds like right now. So I'm gonna keep watching.
Unless those marginalized people oppose them. This is Peter Simeti, publisher of Alterna Comics Press. Alterna is facing the decline of the comic book industry by trying some old methods in modern times. Cheaper paper, lower prices. While Marvel Comics have cover prices of $4.99, Peter is able to make a profit selling his books for $1.50. He's also kept his ear to the ground, listening and agreeing with some ComicsGate ideas, especially with his employees' behavior on social media. He issued a statement explaining that his creators must not use blockchains, which are indiscriminate apps that block potentially thousands of Twitter users who are on the list of targeted ComicsGaters. Peter felt that his employees should use social media to sell their comics to customers, and that mass blocking potential customers would only send a harmful message that would hurt his business. This is a ComicsGate idea in principle, and the comics industry knows it.
Okay.
So, like, you already get to see a little bit of, like, he's saying, I got attacked because I'm a Republican. And it's like, well, you got attacked because you told people to go kill themselves. And then and then harassed trans people for like an entire day.
Yeah.
You know, like, you put out a book that you claim is a joke, which I'm sure it's funny to you, but like called My Struggle, and like put a character that looks like Hitler on the cover. It's like, I'm oversimplifying that, but you're playing into this bullshit, you know?
And like I said it, or I don't know if like while I was watching it, if we're keeping any of that, but it like, I don't know. For me, as like an audience member, you know, if somebody gives me this video and they're like, oh my God, you have to watch this video, like it's going to change your life, whatever. And like, it's all script, like it's full script.
Yeah.
I like, sir, you like, he 100% has like written this to be a certain way. My Siri has turned on. Goodbye, Siri. Very weird. But I don't know. It's just like you can tell he wrote it a certain way to get you to try and feel a certain way for him. And I feel like that just turns me away even more.
So the reason I cut these clips is I have rarely come across something so manipulatively put together so quickly after something horrible. Now, keep in mind, Peter Simeti said, like, let's keep calm. No one, like, cast aspersions. There's, like, an investigation that is underway. Ethan Van Sciver immediately puts this out.
Yeah,
so,
that's... Like, and also, like, makes it about him.
Like, well, I mean, yes, because he...
At least from, like, the first bit that we've seen.
He identifies himself as ComicsGate and claims that this is all... We have, like, full disclosure, nothing comes from this investigation. Nobody gets arrested. Nobody, like, we still don't know what happened. There's a very real possibility that it was someone who was anti-ComicsGate that called the police and did this. There is an equal possibility that it was a ComicsGate person calling to try to gain sympathy. You know, like, we don't know. And it is like, I would say it's probably more likely that it was an anti-ComicsGate person, and it's shitty for that person to have done that, and boo that person. You should not be doing this thing. You should, like, we do not stand with that kind of behavior, right? And had that been something like that, there's a big difference there. A ComicsGate person goes out and does something shitty. They're like, oh yeah, that person shouldn't have done that. But then they don't tell that person to go away usually. Like that would be something that we would, if I knew who that person was, I would have nothing to do with that person, because that is shitty, regardless of what they like, what their reasoning is, you know?
Yeah, there's like, through all these stories, I still don't think there is any reason to be doxing people or doing this whole swatting thing. Like, that is just so inexcusable. Like, I don't think people really realize how much they're affecting other people's lives. Like, even just being mean on the internet, like on a surface level, like writing nasty tweets and thinking it's like criticism. Like, but then, I don't know, you've got to be pretty stupid to like think that, oh, I'm going to swat this person and like, I have like no thoughts otherwise. Like, are you not thinking of like the consequences of like how that really affects somebody's life? And like, is there like a consequence to that person if, let's say, like we did know who swatted this guy? Is there like a fine at least, or like something that we know?
Oh, you can absolutely get arrested. We'll go over some of that.
Thought.
We'll go over some of that, because I do have some background information about like what this thing is coming up. I want to get to the next clip.
Yeah, let's do it.
It's titled The Harassment. And this is going to be where Ethan Van Sciver reads some of the tweets that he uses basically as evidence.
Ren, I trust you on this. Is Alterna Comics bad? Lots of pros follow them. They claim the comics are for everyone thing, but they seem to follow people on both sides of this graphic schism. Alterna's social media policy is, in my opinion, an indication that they care more about appeasing bigots and harassers than about the well-being of their creators.
Okay. I'm not finished, but I have a question.
Yes.
Is he reading all of these?
Oh, yes.
So he's intentionally... I'm going to finish the video.
That makes them a shitty company in my book, and I don't buy comics from shitty companies.
Peter Samedi is a piece of shit. Got that off my chest now, too.
Don't support white supremacists, and your publishing company won't be blacklisted. Anyone that works with Alterna is going to be looked at suspectly now, as it's a publisher that trades in the alt-right. It's called The Truth. You can easily check. Just because I think Alterna supports white supremacy, alt-right, ComicsGate, whatever you want to call yourself today, doesn't equal harassment. Peter had a chance to say he didn't, and he refused. We're concerned that having to publicly explain that slurs and threats are bad will lose us business from the lucrative Twitter shithead demographic. Samedi claims the response to his new rules drove him nearly to suicide. Certainly I don't want to see something like that happen, eh? No rational person would, but these morons think there shouldn't be a cost to bad actions and blame the people calling out his shitty policy. What company on earth do you think is going to punish an employee for using their private Twitter account to defend themselves against attacks from a hate group, other than Alterna Comics, I mean? Peter Samedi responded, I'm a minority, and you've been non-stop harassing me now for nearly 14 hours, trying to get my business shut down. You've accused me of being a white supremacist, among other things. You've become what you hate, and I hope that you get the help you so desperately need. All Nazis deserve to be punched in the face. If this statement upsets you because you're concerned that you yourself will be punched in the face, please note that you can greatly reduce the risk of that happening by not acting like a fucking Nazi.
I have watched the video now.
I just want to say, I like the last one is a really interesting tweet to throw out there, because it's like, all it is saying is if you act like a Nazi, you will get punched. And it's like, I fully support. Who the fuck does not support this?
Yeah, that one was a bit weird to like put in there for your argument. Just
yeah,
because it really wasn't that bad. It was just like, hey, don't be an asshole, or else
basically
people are gonna treat you like you're an asshole.
Right?
Don't do that. Also, said it before. I guess I can say it again. I don't like Nazis. I think they're bad. I don't remember this. I don't remember the exact quote I had from the other episode, but I don't like them. They're not nice.
I think it was Nazis. Like it was something like Nazis are not good people, and I don't like them.
Oh, Nazis are not good, and I do not like them.
something like that. We have a T-shirt up if anyone wants to buy it. You can just go to our website. There's like a store option or something.
Yeah, occasionally I'm in a silly, goofy mood, and I say things funny, and then they end up on shirts. Unlike
we have made a sale of that.
Have we really? Oh,
I have
so
seen
nice.
someone wearing it.
Oh, that's so wholesome. Or I don't know, is goofy. Is a silly goofy shirt. Okay, man, I have thoughts on what the minute and a half that I just watched.
Yeah. I'm sorry to put you through this, but to be fair, I have listened to literally hours of this man.
Yeah, no, like, don't feel bad. It's okay. I knew a podcast I was signing up for. It's okay. I just number one, the voices. Like,
that was the point where I was like, oh, we're going to discuss this video.
I know he chose those voices.
Oh, yeah.
Particularly.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not happy about it. Corinne's upset. Put the counter on. Like, because you know that's him trying to associate. You know?
Oh, yeah. It's the effeminate voice and the stereotypically gay voice that he is trying to connect to someone that he is saying accused someone of murder. Like, you know, the derisive tone that Van Sciver uses while reading these tweets is just there to underline the way that he wants these people to be seen.
Yeah, like, I don't know. I just think it's so interesting when, like, you witness manipulative actions, but you know what they are. Like, it's so wild. Like, I don't know. Have you ever, like, has somebody ever tried to gaslight you, but, like, you knew it was happening? And then you just, like, were like, I don't know what to do with this. Because, like, it's very weird. It is a weird situation to be in. Because you're like, I know what you're doing.
Yes.
And, like, I don't know what to say to you. It's weird. That's how I felt during this moment. I was like, I know the things you want my brain to think, but like it's not working. And like, I don't know if it's because you're bad at it or if it's because I just know what these tactics are and how to avoid them. So it's just very bizarre. Also, I don't like that he put their profile pictures behind their tweets. Because you know that people are going to look for those profiles now.
Yeah. I would agree with you. I have retweeted people to argue with them. So I can't say like I'm not a perfect person when it comes to this thing. But like, you know, I think it's a little different to add that to a video, claim that these people are the ones who have at the very least inspired someone to swat someone.
And it feels like he kind of just picked like 5 random tweets.
So he picked people that Renfamous is one of them.
That one came up, the person with the blue hair.
Yes, that is Renfamous.
That person came up a lot, and I immediately was like, okay, he definitely wants to go after this person.
Yes.
Because you wouldn't put their different profile pictures in each tweet and have a video of them in the background if you didn't want people to look for that person. That's what I'm saying I don't like. Because he did it with the other ones, but not as intently as this particular person. But I like the whole thing just seems a little fishy. I don't like it.
I'm not like Renfamous is someone who I follow. I enjoy. They're not a perfect person. No one's a perfect person. They go into situations sometimes, I think, looking for a fight with ComicsGate, and I can understand that how that is seen negatively. I have zero problems with it because fuck these people and what they've done.
Okay, so Renfamous is a bigger voice in the anti-ComicsGate.
Right.
Okay.
And
Corinne didn't know that, but now Corinne knows.
I'm only throwing that out there because we haven't really talked a lot about the anti-ComicsGate movement. And to be fair, it's mostly just because it's like Renfamous and a few other people, and like in terms of
like vocal.
Like very, very vocal. And they are mostly just kind of calling them out for their bullshit. You know, like
sometimes I feel like like you obviously have like ComicsGate, and there's a lot already happening in that group. Like I can see why it's like, oh yeah, there's also anti-ComicsGate, but that's literally just like people yelling at them. So it's like what more can we get into with that? Unless like something super insane like this SWAT thing happens.
Right.
Like I get why they're coming up here because it's like they're a potential, like suspect of this whole thing.
Right.
But I understand.
So, all of that in the video, that all of that was trying to dismiss these people's character outright.
Yes.
Like their tweets alone don't make the point that Ethan Van Sciver wants to make. Yeah. That's why he does the silly fucking voices. And all of that may seem foolish or funny, and I would argue it's absolutely fucking hysterical. He wants you to understand just how fucking serious he is.
None of this is funny. Anti-ComicsGate harassers, even now, are getting support from mainstream comic figures. Whoever swatted Peter Samiti, that was attempted murder. Cooler heads need to prevail. Now.
He's got a rain stick, apparently.
That was another point where I was like, oh, it is so manipulatively put together that I just could not get over how shitty this whole thing is. You make fun of people's voices, you try to dismiss their character completely without like giving any substance to why. You have like weird music and like rain at different points, and all of this is coming out literally less than 24 hours after the person who was the victim here said, don't do this.
Yeah, it's so weird because it's just, I don't know, Corinne's thinking words. Like it's very sad that this person was swatted, even if like I don't fully dig his vibe of him being weirdly symbiotic with ComicsGate. Again, nobody should ever be swatted or doxxed. There's another t-shirt. Doxing and swatting are poo-poo. So all my shirts involve poo, apparently. So like that should never happen to anybody. I don't think. There should just be a better system to, give people the consequences that need to happen. But it almost seems like he's making this video one in a way of like, I'm grieving harder than you, and also let me profit off of it real quick. And it's just weird. And I think it's also kind of cowardice. Like, I actively avoid content I don't like. I listen to like 3 things. I watch cat videos, sketch comedy, and then there's probably a third random thing. But it's not this. So
my YouTube recommendations are fucked. I try to like not be logged in when I watch. Sometimes like I find it and I just like I have to watch it, you know?
Yes.
So I get recommended live streams from Ethan Van Sciver every so often. Like,
so my question is
these.
then, okay, so for his live streams, does he show his face?
Oh yeah.
Okay, because like I don't picture him showing his face in any of his videos, like just based on like this. And I also think like that's pretty cowardice. Like if you're gonna have these strong opinions, like you should.
No, he absolutely does. And there's we're gonna get a little bit more into him later on.
Okay. Well, I can tell you, I don't like him.
Yeah, I don't either.
Fan, especially after hearing him speak. I really don't want anything to do with him.
Well, the whole point of that video was basically to lay a narrative, right?
Yeah.
He wanted, without any evidence, he wanted to imply that this was an attempted murder specifically brought forth by anti-ComicsGate people.
Mm-hmm.
Which, like, it was probably a dumb prank. I have no idea. Like, we literally have no idea what the fuck happened.
Yeah, and it's like I don't even want to call it a prank. Like it's definitely like somebody is harassing this person.
Well, yeah, I don't mean to downplay.
Oh yeah, no. I get you. I'm putting it out there for me. It's definitely again, it really is a toss of a coin of which side is harassing him at the moment, or like at the time. But this video. The clips that we've just listened to are 100% somebody just trying to profit off of a horrible situation and like promote their opinions by basically like abusing the situation on their own, which is pretty poopy. And Corinne doesn't like that. Corinne's upset. Number 2.
He specifically said that this was an act of attempted murder, right?
Yeah.
So to be clear, there are actual deaths associated with swatting.
Yeah, I don't doubt that.
There was an accidental shooting of a man in Wichita, Kansas in 2017.
Mm-hmm.
That attempted murder is a high bar to overcome when like dealing with this kind of thing. So what Van Sciver is arguing is that someone intentionally set up the situation for somebody to be murdered by the police. The act of swatting itself is awful, but intent is a really hard thing to try to figure out there. Like, again, people do this thinking, haha, it's fucking funny, which clearly it's not, but
yeah, like if somebody thinks this is funny, like you gotta go talk to a professional and like figure some things out.
People have been murdered by the police because of this. You know?
Yeah, I think it's definitely like, again, it's like that virtual world. Like you're behind a screen, you're making a phone call to somebody you've never seen before, like, or about somebody you've never seen before in person. So it's like you just have no connection to this, like, this type of harassment. You're so detached from it that, like, man, people are wild. The fact that my brain just can't fathom even like thinking to do that to somebody. Like, man, that's crazy.
His intent here is to connect that swatting to anti-ComicsGaters like Renfamous.
Yeah.
So by linking these two events in his viewers' minds, he has effectively provided an excuse for any actions that they take to be seen as justified.
Yeah.
This is all publicly stated while no information on that event was available. I cannot stress that enough. Nothing had come out other than this thing happened. And Ethan Van Sciver immediately starts pointing fingers and saying it was attempted murder.
Yeah.
And again, like, no arrests have been made. Nobody has been charged. Nothing to this day for that event, which happened years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, this means that skeptics had a lot of opportunities to disagree with Samedi's versions of events. YouTubers, Comic Book Hut, and possibly my favorite stupid name to come across, Cap'n Cummings, began.
Oh, I don't like that.
I think they go by something else now, but Cap'n Cummings, god damn. I may not like this person, but fuck, that is a funny name.
That was a journey for my ears, my God.
In the case of Cap'n Cummings, he outright denied that Samedi was ever swatted. They basically said this shit did not happen.
Oh my God.
After the event,
do that.
After the event took place, Samedi quickly made the stream private. So there was a live stream that was going on. The police interrupted it. He made it private afterward, meaning that anyone who had not witnessed everything unfold as it was happening now only had basically his word to go on.
And now Captain Cum Dumpster is trying to gaslight all the people who didn't see it and be like, it's not real. We brought Cum Dumpster back. I reclaimed it. Feminism.
For most, there was no reason to question these events. Why would someone make this shit up? I mean, I guess someone could, but that would be also awful. It's a weird thing to think.
Yeah, it's all just like a big sinkhole of bad. And the more shit you throw in it, it's still bad. It's still a sinkhole. There's just another refrigerator in it. It's
right. The more you get into this, the more it's just kind of like people just cannot accept things for what they are. So they got to immediately start questioning fucking everything. Right. It's like that person I was talking about earlier with the Alex Jones and conspiracy bullshit.
Yes.
There's always a chance. So you always have to look. The ComicsGate community had started to split around this time, with Peter Samedi right in the fucking middle. Demands for the release of the police report, the stream, or anything that could prove the swatting actually took place were made, even though Samedi had already made a statement that he was unwilling to release basically any of that because he might interfere with the investigation.
Yeah, and also why would you resurface an incredibly traumatic event?
Yeah, it's fucked up. I kind of understand being like, oh, hey, there's no evidence of this, blah, 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 blah. But it's also, you have to understand people went through shitty things. Why make them relive that?
And the timeline of this is very short right now.
Yeah.
In terms of what we're talking. Yeah. People need to chill out.
Ultimately, the official Alterna Comics YouTube channel released a video featuring part of the stream where the police entered Samedi's home. And they then followed it up with a brief glimpse of the police report written by the lead officer. The case had been closed after 15 months of investigation with no arrests, as we talked about before. Yes. And while the question of whether or not Samedi was swatted had been closed, this unfortunately was not the end to the troubles coming from that night. Less than a month after Alterna Comics provided proof of Samedi's claims, Renfamous posted a copy of a similar report where Peter Samedi specifically stated she and an unnamed individual should be considered when investigating leads. Samedi stated that he believed the swatting to be related to, and I'm quoting here, politically charged atmospheres of the comic book business and an apparent ongoing harassment campaign against him and his company, with Renfamous listed as a vocal proponent. Interestingly, the only thing Renfamous had commented on at that time was the social media policy that Alterna Comics had put in place.
Right.
Renfamous, however, was very vocal in combating ComicsGate members. So no information was provided by Samedi or Alterna, which did little to endear the company to anyone that wasn't already sympathetic to ComicsGate. But this, I think, is a pretty big fucking deal that he points the finger to Renfamous.
Yeah.
Even though Renfamous had said nothing about Alterna except for about that social media policy.
Right.
That's it. The only thing that Renfamous had really gotten into arguments with people online about, to an extreme degree is ComicsGate.
Just ComicsGate itself, yeah.
So that's pretty closely linking the two things, Alterna Comics and ComicsGate.
So in a way, it's like kind of that definitely seals the deal that it's like if he's gonna make them a suspect, then it's clearly like it's possible they've had their own like discussions against ComicsGate or something. Like, 'cause I don't know what kind of reach the Renfamous has. Yeah. My brain was like, Renonymous.
I'm gonna look right now to see how many followers they have. 12.8 thousand followers.
So, because my brain right now, from my true crime and like crime novel brain, is like I'm wondering if they've had their own personal like altercation in like DMs about ComicsGate /
Oh, there's
Alterna.
a possibility. That's something I hadn't actually like thought of.
Boom. But I don't want to try and make conspiracy theories because this case is obviously done. But it also definitely does kind of seal the deal of like, yeah, this person is definitely like, in some way supporting / involved with ComicsGate if they are going to put it on this other person.
It's fucking weird.
There's something weird. I don't know. Yeah. This whole thing is weird. And I have no more thoughts otherwise, apparently, because I just zonked out for like 5 seconds. But again, are we at the bay? It smell fishy. I don't like it.
Surprisingly, though, this is not the only time that we have to discuss swatting.
Oh, that's a shame.
Shortly after the Peter Simeti incident, another prominent figure in ComicsGate came forward with a shockingly similar story. During a live stream with Ethan Van Sciver, Edwin Boyette described how, after returning home from a night at a convention where he was the loudest person in the room, he was jolted awake by a banging at his door. Upon answering, Boyette was greeted by police officers with guns drawn. They explained how they just received a call from someone claiming to be Boyette, who had killed his wife and was suicidal. So pretty close to what happened to Peter Simeti.
Right.
Boyette was able to claim to calm that situation and send the officers on their way, but the similarities to what happened with Peter Simeti were not lost on the ComicsGate crowd.
Yeah.
Boyette admitted that it was strange, and Van Sciver even questioned if these two events were perpetrated by the same individual. I have no fucking idea. Ultimately, nothing ever seemed to come from what happened. Little information was ever given as to any investigation that was underway or how any of it concluded. In fact, other than a blurry image of a document with some handwritten notes along the top, no actual evidence was ever given to prove that the event took place.
Right.
Which, I mean, I'm not saying it didn't happen. I'm just saying, like, there's nothing really to go off of there. So, you really can't speculate. What is perhaps the most interesting isn't even Boyette's claims. The video where this is discussed is a fascinating look at how fickle the ComicsGate movement can be, at least pertaining to Ethan Van Sciver. EVS highlights the fundraising efforts of Earthworm Jim creator Doug Tennepool for nearly clearing $200,000 for one issue of his new ComicsGate project. Were you aware of Earthworm Jim at all? I don't know if that was...
I was going to ask you who he was, because at first, when you just said Earthworm Jim, I've been watching a lot of animal videos recently, like people doing interviews with like tiny microphones and like raccoons.
Oh, yeah.
Which are really great. Everybody should watch them. They're very fun. So there was a brief moment where I was like, oh, he's probably like a YouTuber who has like a worm farm, like an ant farm, but for worms.
Yeah.
And he's named them all. That was my initial thought. And then you said he's funding a ComicsGate comic project, and I went, he does not have an earth farm.
You might, your hopes seem to be a little bit high. I'm gonna need you to lower them a bit for pretty much everyone we talk about.
I know. There was just, it was the first like 2 seconds, and I was like, we wouldn't be bringing him up if he had an earthworm farm.
Earthworm Jim was a video game / cartoon At least it was on when I was younger. I actually really liked it.
Oh, I'm gonna look it up. Okay, you can keep
it's really
talking
cute.
though.
It's there's like this, I think it was like an alien like suit, like a human body suit, that an earthworm happened to climb in, and it made them like super intelligent and basically made them a superhero.
I've seen him before.
Right.
Yeah.
So Doug Tennepool was the creator of Earthworm Jim. And he just so happened to be on the ComicsGate side and fundraising a project, which he got nearly, over $200,000. And that's something that Ethan Van Sciver had him on to just talk like, hey, great fucking job, right?
Yeah.
So not long after this, Tennepool and Van Sciver would have a deep falling out over a sudden lack of ComicsGate support from Tennepool and several misunderstandings between the two. After their feud began, Van Sciver publicly commented on Tennepool's very anti-gay sentiments. For instance, spread throughout his Breitbart articles and Twitter activity were long diatribes against gay marriage and gay rights. So if none of that started ringing fucking bells for you, I don't think anyone, like, you're not paying attention.
Yeah.
When one of his games was criticized by a trans author, Tennepool misgendered her, claimed she suffered from madness, and decided that her article was nothing more than a passive-aggressive hit piece. These comments drove much of the criticism that Van Sciver would throw at Tennepool, but interestingly, he never backed down nor hid his deeply held bigoted beliefs, even before his involvement in ComicsGate. So, criticism from a conservative like Van Sciver doesn't seem to even register as noteworthy, since in his own words, transphobe, like homophobe, is a made-up word used to slander conservative people of faith with a mental condition and is only used by SJWs. So this is like the second episode in a row where we've had to talk about somebody who's using like transphobe or Islamophobe, and they're saying, oh, you just call me these names because you really mean this other thing. Like, no, we call you these names because that's what you fucking are.
Yeah. Like, we literally just had that last episode.
Right.
Yeah.
So it seems by Tennepool's definition, being anything other than anti-gay is tantamount to communism. Like, that's like, it's linked in his mind. Nearly all of these comments were public at the time. EVS proudly supported Tennepool at the start of the video, yet none of them seemed to matter while they were on good terms.
Right.
So you can take all that anti-gay, anti-trans stuff. That's totally fine. Like, that was out there. That was readily available. And Ethan Van Sciver didn't know or care about it until after he decided he did not like this person.
Which he's done multiple times before.
Right. So Van Sciver repeatedly called the anti-ComicsGate crowd mob-like and dangerous, causing one of his guests to comment, "These people have hundreds of thousands of followers. They have influence with them, and when they're spreading out these lies, I mean, they just put them out there, and it's like they're not being held responsible for their own actions." So the insinuation of the culpability of a social media figure for how their words affect others is another moment of a quiet admission that there is a responsibility that one has when they have an audience. You cannot cut it both ways.
No.
You cannot be like, I get to say whatever the fuck I want because it doesn't matter, but this person has an audience and I care because it's something I don't like that person. That's basically all they're saying.
Yeah. He's trying to have his cake and eat it too.
Right. If that same thought process was applied equally, it would mean that Van Sciver would have to recognize his own words as a problem, telling others online to kill themselves, implying Renfamous accused Richard C. Meyer of murder, or even implicating his own perceived enemies as those that called the police on Peter Smeti would require drastic repercussions for the mental turmoil that they have caused.
Right.
Van Sciver, however, refuses to acknowledge the responsibility he has as a leading figure. The man who loudly adopted the nickname Caesar and smiles as his acolytes greet him with pronouncements of hail couldn't even accept his role in platforming someone who stood in direct opposition of gay rights until after it was fucking convenient. And no, I did not speak. He literally has his followers call him Caesar. And as he like starts his live streams, they all go, hail, hail, hail. It's
weird.
fucking weird. It is crazy. I don't know, like, I don't know how that started, but boy, is it fucking unsettling.
Yeah, that is. Corinne's upset. Number 3. It's just weird. I don't like him.
Oh no, I trust me, neither do I.
I just there's just so many thoughts, and then but I can't put them in. Today's a tough day for Corinne to have words and full sentences. I flat out
it melts
like
your brain
man.
after a bit. It like all of this is just, you know,
because it's like there's moments where I'm like, yes, this is all a very vicious cycle, but then like very niche things, like very specific details will come up in each episode, and then I'm just like, why?
So imagine I thought this would be, I would probably do 2 or 3 episodes on this. I kind of like, that was my original thought.
And then we double tripled it.
Yeah. And as I kept writing, I think I was texting you as I was doing the writing process and just being like, I'm going to have to add another episode because this is getting way too goddamn long. Keep in mind, our episodes are over an hour, and like multiples of them are in the 2-hour length.
I really hope people are like having snacks while they're listening, or like just doing something while they're listening. Because like, man, it's like it's a featured length podcast.
And like, there are things that I could probably cut out, but then it's like you're not getting a full picture of what's going on, and you're not getting like the weirdness that is what makes this shit up, you know?
Because it's a lot of definitely like just the problems of Twitter and how Twitter community like works, mixed with just these incredibly like shitty, bizarre people that are just in front of it. It's again, it's a big sinkhole. It's a big weird sinkhole with a lot of weird garbage in it. And that's the best analogy I can think of for ComicsGate.
So as for Edwin Boyette, the man who was swatted, Van Sciver repeatedly praised his guest as a godly kind man. A godly kind man, a peacemaker, and a calm, compassionate voice of cool.
That sounds like a very much like how somebody in like a Jane Austen book would describe like a cousin.
That actually is a really interesting way to describe someone.
Especially that first part. What was the first part again? Like
a godly kind man.
A godly kind, like, yes, Mr. Edwin, a very godly kind man. Like, it's just weird.
This was all after Boyette found himself in some trouble involving his own project, IndieCron, which would track the sales of indie books through their crowdfunding campaigns and promote projects to find new backers. A campaign on the site was delisted due to a problematic figure being included as part of the editorial team, which sparked a controversy over censorship. So you get like, someone sees somebody on there and they're like, why is this person involved? They're a piece of shit. So they take that project off, and then people go crazy because like, well, now you're censoring this thing. It's bonkers, but like,
it seems like people aren't thinking of like what happens if that person who is incredibly shitty is on the project and then a thing gets released. Like would you rather just have it be censored and so it's appropriate for like audiences, or would you rather have this horrible thing come out and then have it horribly reviewed and then you have to deal with the fact that like you supported it? Like,
there's also this thing where I think people are really quick to say like, oh, you can't do this, you cannot take someone off that you find problematic. And why the fuck not?
It's their business.
They are not the government. The government is not stepping in and saying, fuck Todd over there, Todd can't do shit here. You know, this is This is a business that is.
Oh, poor Todd, really got thrown under the bus.
They're choosing to associate with who they want to associate, right? Like,
yeah, that's like how any company works.
Right.
That's how a hiring process works.
Yes. So Indie-Cron would find itself in hot water again later when Micah Curtis demanded to be delisted due to Boyette's association with Vox Day and John Delarose, two men that Curtis described as providing philosophies that were a gateway to white nationalism. And boy, howdy do I fucking agree with that.
Yeah.
Boyette's frequent erratic behavior, coupled with the promotion of these ideologies, led to the ComicsGate community and Boyette severing ties. They were just like, we cannot deal with this dude anymore. He's no longer part of ComicsGate. He was pissed off at all the ComicsGaters for calling him out on bullshit. They are basically done with, right?
Yeah.
Shortly after, Van Sciver began ridiculing him by giving him nicknames like Methwin Boyette because he believed he looked like someone on meth. These insults and complaints didn't appear until after Boyette's departure from ComicsGate. Prior to this, Van Sciver offered only kind words. Again, he's the godly kind man.
Yeah.
And then as soon as he's like no longer in the then company,
he's meth face.
Right. The transition happened swiftly and decisively. Boyette had lost what was once a group ready to rally to his defense and fawn over his seemingly quiet demeanor.
This is such a middle school thing.
Oh my God, yes.
Where it's just like, wow, I really like Todd. He's really fun and is good at Foursquare. And then like Todd gets you out in Foursquare and you're like, damn, Todd's a poopy butthole and I hate him. Like, I had to bring back Todd. I missed him.
So that is not the end of Boyette's story. Unfortunately, this is going to get a little difficult. In the early days of 2021, in January of 2021, the official Twitter, okay. Yes, the official Twitter account of the Hawaii Republican Party gained a lot of attention thanks to a few tweets coming to the defense of QAnon followers. One tweet read, "We should make it abundantly clear, the people who subscribe to the Q fiction were largely motivated by a sincere and deep love for America. Patriotism and love of country should never be ridiculed." They misspelled country as county, but I think it's pretty clear what they meant.
Context helps. Yes.
Right.
Cool.
This tweet was authored by the Hawaii GOP vice chairman, Edwin Boyette.
Oh.
Yes. So
a plot twist.
Yes. So while some, including Van Sciver, took this to mean that Boyette was a follower of QAnon, the tweet actually kind of proves the opposite. Boyette had always been clear that he thought everything to do with Q was fiction. And his tweet was a show of support for those who were fooled by that conspiracy. Mm-hmm. Like it's not saying, hey, everybody be nice to Q followers because, you know, we were all there. Like it's saying these people were tricked, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm realizing now, I don't think that there's anyone out there that doesn't know what QAnon is. But in case there is, QAnon
in case they came to this episode first instead of the first two.
Well, and just like fucking like the world that has like fallen, around. Like QAnon was a weird thing that like sprang out of 4chan and 8chan, and it was basically just someone shit posting and saying that there was this secret cabal within the government that was simultaneously working against Trump. And then there was also Trump's team was going to arrest Hillary Clinton and throw her in jail. And it was like when Trump was taken out of office, he was going to be back in any day now. Any fucking day now. And it never happened. And people really bought into it. It was there was people like they convinced everyone that there were like pedophile rings out there that were drinking adrenochrome. Yeah. It is fucking awful. There's a great podcast called QAnon Anonymous. There's actually quite a few out there that will go into like further detail about this, but basically it's a bullshit cult is what it is.
Yeah.
And all Edwin Boyette was saying was, hey, these people were tricked. Let's like try to be nice to them. And I can get behind that. Like it's a shitty thing to believe in, but
it's kind of like, how would you deal with like a cult survivor? Yeah.
So
really shitty cult.
Van Sciver took this opportunity to start a live stream where he repeatedly mocked the man that he had once treated as a paragon of peace in his movement. Boyette resigned from his position within the Hawaii GOP shortly after the tweets were deleted, and little has been heard from him since. He basically just kind of said, I'm stepping away. This was too much. What should be abundantly clear is Boyette's show of compassion to others that were ridiculed and mocked for their beliefs, which is something that Van Sciver once praised, became the vehicle for his own derision. The controversy itself largely stems from poor wording on Boyette's part and the proximity of them in relation to the attempted insurrection at the Capitol, largely driven by Q adherents. These followers do, in fact, deserve to be held accountable for their actions, but Boyette's comments never say the opposite. Mm-hmm. It's impossible to tell the exact motivation that he might have had in forming these tweets, and using the official Twitter account of his party demonstrates an extreme lack of judgment, but there is an actual conversation to be had on how we as a society can reach out to those controlled by what is a cult. He just said these people need to be treated with compassion. It's something that Van Sciver once said it was a good quality of this man, that he was a compassionate man, and then uses it to mock him. And it's bonkers to me. And I shouldn't be so like surprised by this.
Because he's done it like to like 15 other people.
It's just insane that you can keep doing this and people follow you and don't see through the grift, you know?
That's again why I'm wondering, is it like what I asked before, like, do I just know what these manipulation cues are, or is he bad at it? I guess that then answers the question that I just know, and you just know what these manipulation cues are. Like, it's the same thing with like, oh, how could these QAnon people fall for QAnon? It's because they don't know. They just, they haven't had a reason to understand like this is what manipulation is, which is a shame.
I think there's also like,
and then again, when you agree with somebody's like opinion. Like,
there's a positivity looking like, I want this thing to be true, so I am going to fucking believe it.
Yeah.
And then there's also if I am wrong, it is devastating to my ego.
Yeah.
And probably your sense of self. So then you cannot allow yourself to be wrong.
Because it's definitely also one of those situations where it's a group of people that just don't take responsibility for like their wrongdoings. Like,
yeah.
Because, I mean, obviously, like, people are mad at Ethan Van Sciver, like, and very publicly. I mean, the fact that we're doing a podcast about how poopy he is, like, there's clearly other people that are also doing this.
Yeah.
So, like, I think there has to be some recognition of, like, damn, people are really mad at me. If I somehow, like, let up that I'm wrong, I'm going to have to, like, take responsibility for all the things that I've said. So, it's definitely it's probably, like, a hot, messy beef minestrone soup of, people just being confused, people having these opinions and being genuinely angry and exclusive. And then also people that are just probably at this point like, well, I can't be proven wrong or else I'm going to have to take responsibility for the bad things that I've done. And I think that is truly the celery, onion, and carrot of this shitty soup. So here we are.
I think you put that pretty succinctly. And there is a like a similarity between the way that like QAnon has worked and the way that ComicsGate has worked, I think. The hateful actions of those individuals should be disavowed. The misinformation that should be combated, and the followers should be given an opportunity to see where the movement and where they themselves were wrong. Q holds authority because these followers believe a secret, powerful individual is the only one speaking the truth. And for the followers, this offers them a chance to feel special in being some of the few who see through the lies. ComicsGate believes that they and the stories that they love are victims. And out of the confusion and hurt come individuals like Ethan Van Sciver or Richard C. Meyer, who offer an opportunity to revel in rebellion by acting out against their perceived enemies. So these men become leaders, and the followers gain strength by being some of the few who fight back against what they perceive as lies. So one way of exposing just how removed from reality that these groups are, especially to their adherents, is to detail the facts and point out the calculated manipulations employed and the utterly ridiculous and cartoonish nature of their leaders. I think you and I have seen that just in watching one video. It's insane. And it should be documented that this is nuts, right?
Yeah, and it's kind of a shame because it's like, I feel like there's probably a lot of people in this whole movement that could easily be taken out of it, you know, like, like, you know, they can like understand that, oh, my stories are still here and it's okay that these new ones are coming out. I think it's a shame that the internet is very like extremist at the moment just because of how things just in general have developed on social media and stuff. So it is like, I can understand how it's like when you do have other people screaming at you on the internet, that, you know, you could be scared to be stuck in that corner. I almost wish that I could like, and I also don't want to do this, but like, you know, just sit in like a room with like just a little group of like ComicsGate people, and I could be like, hi, let's like talk about this, and then like maybe you'll change your opinions, and we'll do it in a place that's not my hometown, so I don't possibly get doxxed. Like it, like, because I feel like if you had a conversation, like a normal, like low decibel conversation with people, they would understand like, oh, you know, like, I guess like my nerves are valid, but also there is nothing here for me to be afraid of. It's very weird.
So one of the things that I think is maybe worth noting, there's nothing wrong with people making their own comics, you know, putting together their own indie scene. That's wonderful. The problem we have is with the way it was done was to promote a particular ideology.
Oh yeah, like if you're making like hateful shit, like please leave.
And
I guess I'm thinking more of just the readers themselves. Because it's like, if you're like, oh no, I'm scared Captain America is going to go away. Like my Chris Evans Captain America looking man. Like, you know, no, he's still there. You still have your copies. You can always reread. And like, you know, I'm sure they're going to make another one. It's okay. Like I'm never going to be able to change Ethan Van Poopy Face. Like that's not going to ever happen. And like, you know, the people that are going to be making hateful shit, again, please learn that it's hateful shit. But I guess I'm thinking more from like the casual reader that has gotten warped up into this. That's kind of the people I'm definitely worried for. These poopy face people that are very loud and yelly, I'm like, please go home. But yeah.
Oh, yeah. And it's such a strange thing for me to think back on, because what you see are the very loud people, right? And the ones who are just kind of like, yeah, I feel this way, you don't really get to see much of that. And I mean, because by their nature they're kind of fading.
They're just the likes and the retweets,
right?
Yeah.
And I wish there was a way to talk to them about, you may not like this particular comic, and you may not like that they changed a thing. That's okay.
But it's
You
still a
don't have to
valid
like
story. Yeah.
Right.
And I feel like
fine.
if those people were talked to, like, again, the likes and the retweets people, like, and that did cause them to shift their opinion, you know, because then you would have these loud people, in a way, get silenced because they're not getting the likes, they're not getting the retweets, they're not getting the, like, Hail Caesars, like, you know, because the casual people that are listening to them and doing the likes and comments are, you know, chilling the fuck out.
Right.
But that is a very, like, I understand, idealistic way. Like, no, we cannot all sit in a room and be like, hi. That's just me being like, I like comics and I just want people to read. So it's a time. It's a big weird, it's a big shitty soup in a sinkhole.
I think an interesting thing here, Boyette resigned, right, from his position.
He did.
And I do think that was well earned. Like, you did a thing that should require you to resign. That was fucked up. You know, the use of that Twitter account was really ill-advised. You could have just easily done it on your personal account. And I get the idea behind it, but it's very poorly judged, right? But I think out of all of that, the thing that became the most clear was Van Sciver's lack of principles.
Oh, 100%.
He is an opportunist, one who holds allegiances only to those that serve his best interests under the guise of furthering the ComicsGate cause. His followers demand absolute adherence and will swarm any that dare dissent, all while claiming that they themselves are the victim. Caesar, the great dictator, might actually be a fairer nickname than he had ever imagined.
Yeah.
It's fucking insane the way that, like,
and he just doesn't see the irony of it. It's
yes. We will talk more about ComicsGate and perhaps a crumbling empire within ComicsGate on the next episode, and what will be our final episode on the ComicsGate subject. So I'm very happy about it, and I'm so stoked to get to the last bit of it, because there's so much to talk about and some fun stuff, some really there's a light at the end of the tunnel. We're going to talk about some happy stuff at the end.
Oh, yay! We're going to get out of the sinkhole.
And if I'm planning things correctly, it will come out around my birthday. And there is going to be something in there. If everyone that's listening wants to get me a birthday present, it's going to be very simple and laid out at the end. Trust me. You can find more information, including all of the sources for today's episode, at comicallypedantic.com. You can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram by searching @PedanticCast and @Derek L. Chase on both platforms. New episodes come out most Sundays on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and at comicallypedantic.com. Now, when I say most Sundays, I do mean when I'm actually producing these, because there are long gaps between them. Because trust me, it does take a long fucking time to do this research. Again, I listened to fucking hours of Ethan Van Sciver talk.
He puts himself in a black hole.
Right. If you want to support the show, we do have like a buy me a cup of coffee button on the website. You can help us stay ad free. I can hopefully end up giving Corinne a good gift for helping me out on all of this.
It's friendship.
If you have any comments or questions, you can send them in text or audio recording to comicallypedantic@gmail.com. Just please indicate if you'd like your name or question read on the air. Next episode, we will dig into more publishers' ties to ComicsGate, more lawsuits, and the complete embarrassment of Richard C. Meyer. But until then, you can find more exciting adventures at your local comic shop.